Hello and welcome back to your favorite and probably the only Age of Empires 3 podcast here on the Age of Some Bros YouTube channel. I'm your host, Sir Shark Dad, and today's podcast is actually brought to you by one specific sponsor, and that is we have our screenshots here that you see that are going to be going through, and they've been provided by Arcadius Barca. So that's Arcadius Barca 1008. Link is going to be in the description for his YouTube channel. That is an AoE 3 scenario editor channel, kind of giving you some tips and tricks and trying to develop a community for the scenario editor. And so I had the privilege of talking to Arcadius, and he provided all these wonderful screenshots that he was able to develop in the scenario editor. So link will be in the description for that, as well as the fact that a link for our Discord is also in the description, the Age of Some Bros Discord. And we have a new sort of matchup editor from our resident and own Hell Punch, who runs a ELO ranking site. And so now there's going to be some new tools on there for your ranked gameplay. So come check that out, visit the Discord, and be able to stop in and say hello to him. Anyway, with that out of the way, we have a nice frosty morning here in March, and I am joined with Madonna and CEO of AoE 3. Welcome back, guys.
Is that the real CEO?
He is the real CEO of AoE 3. Not of WE, but of AoE 3.
Yeah, I don't do very much.
So I want to open up with a sort of like a get to know you question that Madonna hates because it's off topic.
Oh yeah.
But just to break the ice, I guess let's talk about let's say, what is your favorite non-alcoholic beverage?
Whiskey.
Oh God.
Whiskey.
Ah, it's pretty close.
Yeah. Besides the fact that it has alcohol in it, it's pretty close.
If you remove the alcohol.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Your favorite non-alcoholic beverage?
Oh. Ooh.
I personally love the San Pellegrino sodas.
Oh, not just the water. You like the soda. What's your favorite?
That's very fancy
flavor of that?
I don't know, just like the normal orange. It's like a Fanta, but like it doesn't taste as sugary. It just tastes very nice.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can see that.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it is.
I like I don't know, good cup of tea, Lanchu, black tea.
Okay. I haven't had that brand. I think that's just probably an Australian
Oh, it's
thing.
like a Chinese.
Or is
yeah,
it Chinese?
No, it's
Okay.
Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah, well, could you guess from the name? Lanchu.
Lunch.
Very Australian. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I'm gonna go with see, part of me wants to say sarsaparilla, but I don't think that's
Well,
true.
that's that licorice stuff.
No.
It tastes like aniseed or whatever, isn't it?
It's like a root beer.
I swear it tastes like aniseed.
It's like a root beer. It's really good. I'm gonna go
That's
coffee.
Intensely American root beer. I like root beer. That's what I drink on the weekend. Root beer.
I'm gonna go coffee. Just
Oh yeah.
plain old coffee.
Yes.
Yeah, very delicious.
Like American Starbucks coffee or like actual coffee?
Like, well, what do you? I mean,
Or you know, like espresso or flat white.
oh yeah.
Maybe
I
like
mean, I
proper-
guess my favorite, like if I'm going to get coffee, like actual coffee, I honestly prefer mine as a pour over these days. I also have an AeroPress. We do AeroPress a lot in the house. We do AeroPress at the local coffee shop I go to. So big fan of either one.
Getting technical on me.
Yeah, so I have an extra large AeroPress, and then we have some other dynamic ones: pour over, Chemex pour over, Clover. I used to be a big fan of French press, but honestly, like if you're out there and you're drinking French, it's really not that good. The way to really get a good coffee in your French press though is in between the two filters, put a like a regular drip coffee filter in between those, and you'll get
Jesus Christ.
you'll get far more aeration on the plunge. So really cool.
I'm all about aeration.
Now I understand why you're not playing Age of Empires anymore. You're just busy
Yeah,
making coffee.
he finishes his morning prepping his morning coffee at 4 p.m.
I am not playing Age of Empires 3 just because I watched that game that CEO played just now, and I'm like, yeah, forget it. That's a lot of work for not a lot of gain.
Well, that's when you play Russia, yes.
So let's talk about Age of Empires 3 since that's why we're here, and I want to talk about balance, but not like in a weird sort of dumb tier list kind of way of like, oh, like this is, this is good Civ, this is bad Civ. The balance is what it is. Like the game hasn't, besides the prevalent strategies on the ladder, the patches are gone, so there is no like significant balance changes unless the community develops them. So it's a discussion about the discussion of balance, which is kind of heady, but I think that one of the big things that the community always kind of gets in a tussle over, and we'll end up talking about balance anyway, but like a lot of people fight about who has the right to talk about balance. You know what I mean? Like we talk a lot about, well, the opinions of this group or that group by Elo or whatever is kind of skewed, and you see arguments on either or side. And so I wanted to kind of just have a freewheeling discussion about how best to understand balance, talk about balance, and who has the greater claim to talk about balance. People tend to make fun of Madonna in the Discord just because they're like, oh, he's an elitist because he says anybody over 2,000 elo is the only people that can talk about balance, although that's not something you've ever actually said. So
it's a caricature,
right? If you want to go ahead and clarify, like we can start there. I think like if you want to clarify your position,
don't want to defend yourself.
Yeah,
let people know what you actually think.
Okay. Well, I mean, it just comes down to like what's the philosophy that what's your balance philosophy? And what I think is the best way to balance a game, like any game, in this kind of like obviously not chess or whatever, but it's like, a normal video game like Dota or whatever, is that you balance from the top down, because in my opinion that gives the player that's learning a good incentive to actually get better. So if you balance the game around having like good micro, good macro, good game knowledge, using all the mechanics in the game, like you can't get away with just skipping some mechanics. And that generally correlates with like higher elo in our game, for example. And I just think that, like, this is just my personal opinion, like I don't have any facts or anything to back this up, but that's the philosophy that I agree with, and I think it generally checks out when you just take a glance at the top players. Like they generally know more about all the small details that matter, and they can also execute on all of those mechanics. And the problem is when you start to balance things for the lower tiers is that you run the risk of de-emphasizing some of that, like some of those details or the nuance. So, for example, in my opinion, like if you look at Botto or Otto, mm-hmm. they just have less APM overall, and I think that's like an essential part of why they are so popular among all elo levels, but particularly like in the lower elo brackets. It's because it's just easier to play. Like you don't have to make vills manually, and so you don't get punished by that. Like the only thing you have to remember is to click the the church upgrade to get more vills from your TC. And like if you like, that's generally what I think. And yeah, I don't know, like, does that make sense to you guys, or is it like, do you just disagree with my philosophy, or like, do you disagree with like some parts of it?
I agree with the like top-down philosophy, like with some caveats, especially in the context of AoE 3, like, because having the faculties to actually optimize like the game or your game in an RTS game like AoE 3 is possessed by like, I don't know, 5% of the players, right? Like, it's not an intelligence thing or anything like that. Some people are good at soccer, some people like the color red, some people are good at Age of Empires 3. And like the distribution of like, I guess ELO, I'm sure someone can actually chart it up. It's probably like, I guess not everyone actually, like it's like logarithmic, right? Like it's like there's quite a few people at like low ELOs, more and more and more mid, peaks at, I don't know what it is, 13 of 500, call it, and then it falls off very sharply beyond that. Like there's not many people. Like what's top 200? Like 1800. Like there's 200 people above like 1800 or 1850 or whatever. So, like, again, I agree with what you're broadly saying around, you should ultimately fine tune a game around, people playing the game well. Absolutely. Like it makes no sense otherwise. And ultimately people play the game to get better. That doesn't always happen, but so you that naturally fits in with that behavior of the player base. But I think, like, you look at some of the discussions, like among the really good players, and tier lists they put out, like the famed Revnak tier lists and stuff, and like it gets ultimately pretty esoteric for the vast majority of the player base. Like you have some stuff, to be honest, I can't actually think of an example now, like this civ is considered really good by the top 5% because you cap out your APM and stuff like that, and you essentially need to achieve that to make the civ good. Whereas then for 90% of players who aren't quite achieving that level of APM, it's just kind of bad. And a funny example is like Brit, I guess, because I don't know, I always considered Brit good like every ELO. I think they sort of are, but you look at like the actual win rates and they essentially like suck until 2k plus ELO, right? Like as in like 48% win rate across the board, and then you get to 2k and it's like 56%. It's like it's quite crazy. So yeah, I just think
Do you think that's a problem, or do you think that's just okay?
No, I don't strictly think it's a problem. Like, for example, like on an anecdotal level, I don't like play as Brit or against Brit, and I think they're under or overpowered. But I guess point being that, like the 2k plus ELO players will collectively come up with some views around things that are really only pertinent to 5% of the player base. And maybe, it's technically true in the sense that if I play this game in its purest form, and like I'm not held back by like my human, inability to multitask, and I just nail everything, then yes, that's a good starting point for balance. But yeah, you do get into some areas where it's just like, well, if I balance this for that, it's alienating how 90% of the player base play. Having said that, I don't think there's actually too much of that, and jump in if you disagree. I don't think there's too much of that in Age of Empires 3. Like I said, the Brit example, which is actually pretty jarring, but I don't think there's too many civs that are kind of like, either a really big problem at mid ELO and then not a problem at the upper echelons, or a massive problem at like 2k, but then not a big problem at like, I don't know, 1600 where we tend to sit. I can't think of any, so I guess to that end, they've done a pretty good job.
I think, I think we can all agree that the balance for the most part right now is not too bad. Like it's actually, if you remove a few things, that I think most people would be happy.
Yeah,
And
it's just as Shark said, like, there's not been a patch, and inevitably, like, people start settling into certain things, and it gets a bit stale. Like, that's just how
yeah,
it goes.
It leads me to another question, because let me take a game that I'm actually good at. Let me think of that. So
Oh, wow.
something like I play a lot of Battlefield 1, or Helldivers 2.
I don't feel.
And so, like, I'm better at shooter games, I think, right? And so, like, let's take Battlefield 1, and that you'll have some guns that are extremely good, and some guns that are not so good. And if for me, who's been playing for a minute, and knows my own skill level, I can be like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and pick up this gun, gun Y instead of X, because gun Y I know is a handicap, and I'm only doing it just because to kind of prove to myself that I can use it and be successful at it, and kind of flex on other people that they're getting trashed on by a bad gun, whereas they're trying to use the gun with a million bullets in it that fires all the super fast, right? And then I'm successful in that. And so I think, however, then somebody can look at that, and maybe to your point, Madonna, is like, well, somebody can look at that and say, well, that's just because I have unlocked the potential of that gun, and it's a skill thing, and so that doesn't really speak to the balance or anything like that. Nobody should listen to some sort of griefer who's bad at the game and is like, that gun is overpowered. And it's like, no, it's only overpowered because of like the person who's using it, not the gun itself is not elevating my skill level in an unjust, unfair manner,
Yeah.
But I do think that
I
there is something to be said, though, or at least the question is that why then should then that would also be the inverse, right? So like if the gun is still bad, and my skill is what is elevating the gun to make it look decent, and so then if me as like a higher echelon player is like, no, this gun's fine because I'm able to use it just fine, but then the rest of the community is like, this gun is not good. Like, we cannot use this gun, only these certain people are able to use the gun. Is that not a balance concern, or is it just like do the developers just look at that and say, you're just gonna have to get good if you want to be able to use the gun, so like, and obviously gun being a stand-in for civilization, right, or whatever strategy, right? Like if I say, like, just pick X civ, these echelon of players are able to really, like you said, Britain, they can make it really work because of, as Shake calls it, it's the noob killer, right? It's extremely high APM. There's a lot of ills coming at you really fast, and that's fine.
Can I just say, like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
At some point you have to decide like what you're balancing around. Like, I think that it's good to have some kind of core principles. So for example, with Brits, if you wanna, like, if we want to reward good macro and like good APM, then Brits is just, it's as you say, like, you just get good and then you will win more because that civ just rewards that kind of playstyle. And in my opinion, Brits is like, it feels like it's the first civ that they ever designed in the game. Like, it just feels like such a core.
It probably is, actually, because wasn't the original Age of Empires 3 demo was a 1v1 between Britain and Spain, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In Legacy.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, but so like, I just feel like maybe we should try to follow, those kind of principles. Like, I'm not inherently against the game changing. We've had a lot of changes with DE, but I do think like there's some kind of value to be had from following a consistent, balanced design. And another thing I just wanted to chime in with before I forget about it is the oh fuck, I forgot. God damn it.
Happens to the best of us.
But you guys had my
well,
question,
as we
right?
don't know.
Like the kind of like
Yeah.
what happens is that if you take that
Whoa.
narrow scope, you can end up in a place where it's like
Oh
things
wait,
are...
yeah, I remember now. Sorry.
Okay.
I would say that when you try to balance a game like Age of Empires 3, the people who are most affected by the small changes are gonna be the people who, play competitively or...
Yeah, the margins, like...
Yeah. So if you think like, okay, well, this game mechanic is too hard for lower elo people, but like most of them, like they don't get that affected by certain things just because like
I agree, they
they
just won't
don't really
engage with
care.
it.
Like they're more casual.
Yeah.
Like they just play for fun. Like instead of me and CEO who literally just sweats our asses off. And we notice all the small details. So like, oh, okay, he had this timing 30 seconds earlier than I had, and that feels unfair because they changed this thing with the Civ. Like those kind of details matter a lot to our enjoyment of the game and our, I would say our willingness to play this game. Because,
Yep.
like, I mean, I don't know. Do you understand what I mean?
I do. I think it's a good point. Like, the marginal changes, like, they're like, 100% felt at whatever, the, number 1 through number 200 players, then, like 80%, 70% felt, and then, where, I don't actually know where the majority of players sit, but then, once you get down to, I don't know, probably like 1,300, 1,200, like, it's just not noticed because people aren't, playing, like, the game maybe for the same reason, obviously, as, the 1800s are playing. So I agree. So, like, you make a change, and then that, might benefit the people that will notice it, and then the people that don't notice it, well, they don't notice it. So it's not, infringing their enjoyment of the game. And then, like, just to circle back to Shark's point around, like, this gun's bad, but it's good because I'm good. Like, I think that's where people get mixed up a bit, and then sort of leads to the topic of biases of, obviously, everyone has a main civ or civ they really like, or a main handful of civs, and that obviously sculpts their view of balance, right? And I think, and you have discussions with people around, which, like, I always really enjoy just chatting to people around. Oh, look, in my experience, this is really busted, or this is really bad, and then they have a different experience, which is interesting to chat about, and more often than not, it's because they play a different civ, right? Like, but when you're actually having earnest discussion around balance as a whole, it's important for people to be able to put that to the side. And I know it's nice. We all want the devs to, like, balance the game. Should we have another patch one day that makes my civ better and the civ I don't like worse? But you actually want to, for the benefit of the game, not have that attitude pervade, and you presume that the devs that do put forward those updates don't have that. But I guess it's more just when you're talking to people, that can really dictate what they think or what they say. I won't name names, but, like, there was a kind of funny example in one of the Discords we're in recently where, someone, I think, had just lost to, what are they called? The Red Lancers, the Varthelders? The Red Lancers, yeah. That Dutch send. And then, obviously, they had a tough time dealing with those. And, the comment was, oh, these Red Lancers are really oppressive and they're busted. Well, and I think they're busted. And it's just like, like they're just objectively not. Because, one, Dutch is pretty bad, 1v1. And 2, you got to send a church card. And anyway, won't get into the technicals, but it's just a thing that's, I think most players would agree, is objectively not busted. But then, someone had this experience in their little world that it was. and then it sort of was quite a strong view, and it gets kicked around chats and stuff a bit. And I think that's fine for the sake of discussion, but yeah, you just want to. My point being, I guess when you actually truly are talking about, or more importantly, developing balance updates, yeah, you want to keep a holistic view, which I guess is why balancing is so hard. Because you change one thing in one civ, and it's going to make these matchups change in a completely different way to how these matchups are going to change. So, yeah, I think it's easy to complain about balance and the state of balance, but to Madonna's point, obviously, we felt more
can I
up
just
top.
chime in here?
Yeah. Please, yeah, I realized I was
think it's
having
also
a rant.
like
Yep.
when people just discuss balance like in a casual way, for example in Sun Bros. I mean, and people get frustrated about certain things. I mean, that's completely normal, and we should
I agree.
encourage that. But that doesn't necessarily mean like if I write about how much I hate Auto and all of their units and all that shit. Like it doesn't necessarily mean I want to nerf them to to trash. Like, but I think it can say something about the general sentiment about balancing. Like when we've heard now for I don't know at least a year, like people complaining about USA and Auto like over and over and over. Like I feel like there is something there that needs to be looked at.
Of course. But that's a consensus at this point. Like everything reverts to the mean, right? Like, obviously you're going to have some random that has some complaint about pretty much every civ. Like I hear people that complain about Russia, right? Like probably the most trash civ in the game. And so, you're just like, okay, sure. There are some civs that don't do well against Russia, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, like I agree. When there's, and that's how you build consensus, right? Like you just have chats and people discuss. And yeah, I think you'd see that a common denominator around 95% of the player base is Otto's busted for reasons. Well, there's many reasons, but Jans are really strong, Spahi are really strong, Abus, la la la. But yeah, like that's how you get to that's how you see that something's a real concern or not. Like if it's a consistent complaint or discussion or whatever you want to call it across the player base, across civs, then it's valid. I guess my point was just that like, oh yes, I'm a Japan main. Well, I'm not. As an example, I'm a Japan main and I struggle against Russia. Russia's really broken and they need a nerf. Like that's not separating your bias from a genuine comment around the state of the game.
Yeah. I mean, also, I feel like at this point we have so many civs that it's gonna be hard to balance
exactly.
every matchup.
So hard.
Like it's almost impossible. So, I mean, I don't necessarily see that as a problem.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see it as a problem. But I mean, but you have to take it into consideration for any future patches, which won't come. But
Oh, look, I remain optimistic, but yeah, exactly. Like you're gonna change one thing and it'll change every matchup in so many different ways. But yeah, there are some things where it's just like Janissaries are really the musks with 215 HP and age 2. Like that's not matchup specific. That's just every civ would rather not face musks with 215 HP and age 2, right? Like that's just the kind of thing we need to be, focusing on.
Yeah.
But I guess then to go more, because I think we spoke about like how the views around top players sculpting the discussion and sculpting balancing changes, and then I think obviously just as valid is the opinions of, I guess, the what do you want to call them, the mid-elo players like us, and then obviously the more casual players, maybe don't take it as seriously. And I think where it can get like a little bit, I mean, we sort of covered this, but where it's like a little bit, I guess, frustrating when you truly do care about the balance of the game is like, someone that people that maybe don't like play very casually, play single player, play skirmish, and I guess it's a difficult thing to articulate without sounding, I guess, kind of haughty. And full disclaimer, I'm not a pro by any means. I just got smacked on the ladder just then, as Madonna just witnessed. But when I guess your comment, your ability to truly comment and have observations, I think, does eventually get limited by how you interact with the game. And if you're playing very casually, that obviously there's nothing wrong with that. But I agree, like, you're not engaging with all the content as it's ultimately envisaged to be engaged with. So views on balance will be kind of distorted, I guess, is just all I'd say.
It leads to another question where I guess, like, for example, I think it was Viper. He made some comments about how, like, because people ask him obviously a lot about his feelings on just balance in general, and then balance in Age of Empires 2, right? And he says that for him, he says, don't take what I say into consideration, because I'm going to be fine either way. The game is for everyone, and so the key for balance is to make it as accessible and to feel good for everybody. And I think that, and so that leads to this question, and I guess Madonna's point is like, well, it just depends on the philosophy. I'm wondering why the Age of Empires 3 community culture seems to be like, I don't know, balance is this sort of like an a priori form. Maybe that's too much of a philosophical term. Like, because I'm thinking of it as like it's a platonic form, right? There is this thing that is balance qua balance, that is like that. It's this truth that we can achieve as long as we can kind of like parse out like exactly how the interactions are supposed to go if you play everything perfectly, like, kind of like a lab. You know what I mean? If we eliminate all the variables and we can come out with the outcome, empirically speaking, then we can reach the truth of balance. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. But when in reality,
you chart out all the data and do the perfect little touch up that least disrupts the rest of the data.
And so that kind of leads me to my next question of like, all right, but then aren't the pros always just going to be okay anyway? And
No,
like, and this is the big question too. Like, let's double it up, because, for example, the complaints about Ottoman, right, is just will be relentless, and in my personal, I haven't really expressed any of my opinions on any of this so far, but I will sneak one in that the developers absolutely made Ottoman worse in reworking them. And so and then that was an outcry from the community. But I remember very distinctly, we're talking like the big ESOC people, big time streamers. I believe Lionheart said something about this, whatever. They're not that strong. You guys just need to know how to play against them. This is one of those things.
When was this?
Oh man, it must
be
like
a few patches ago.
Yeah, like 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And so, and very much like, well, just get good, because we're not experiencing that issue, and we know better, like, about the game, And so it was very much like a haha, like, okay, kids. And then slowly but surely it like crept into the top of the ladder, and then then you hear some grumblings, whatever, and it's like, okay, well, why don't you just perhaps like, if we're going to the mean and that there is a consensus around something, that perhaps like all of these players have a point, maybe, I don't know, I'm just asking, like, do you have to wait, or is it one of these instances where like there's an understanding that if it's not good for the majority of the player base, even though the pros are going to be okay, like, is that something that, like, in terms of balance, deserves addressing? Just putting that out there.
I mean, I would just say, like, this comes back to our old podcast about like what is lame, and what I mean by that is, I feel like Ottoman is the the example of like it goes against some of the design philosophy that I find to be core of this game. Like you're making things, you're rewarding like gameplay that isn't necessarily the most skillful in a way. Like I'm not sure quite how to phrase this.
You're rewarding
It's easy.
slack-jawed button pushing.
Yeah,
as if
like
you're a
for
McDonald's
example,
drive-through
like
worker that's just
when
tapping the screen.
you got all of the shadow teching. Like you got Nissan Fusiliers that are really powerful. That's shadow tech. You have Spahi. That's shadow tech. You have Abus, which has absolutely insane animation. Like small things like that. It just, I feel like it disincentivizes all of the core like skill set that you want, that all the other civs require, and they've just elevated that with the rework of the Ottomans, in my opinion, and that's why it's a problem. Like if they, I don't know, like you just get upgrades for free just for aging. Like that doesn't require you to do anything other than click the age up button. That doesn't reward anything. Like it just feels unfair for the other person who plays against it. And that's why that's what I think is the frustration with auto. Like, so if you just see auto like play a normal semi FF, like that's not too bad. Like you know what's coming. You can absolutely prepare for that. But at the same time, like the all of their units are just like better than, you know, other civs. Like Jans just move forward. I know it's a meme, but it's true. Like they just have like 300 HP, and they don't need to micro. Like you just.
But the question for me is that, do I have to listen to anything that you just said to me, like because of your elo, or do I have to wait for, you know, Opti to like go on stream and then say the exact same thing, but because he's saying it and not Madonna, even though they say the exact same thing.
No, I absolutely, I think there,
you know what I mean?
As we talked about before, like there absolutely needs to be a consensus. Now, how big that consensus is going to be is always up for debate.
Can I throw a wrench into this? I want to throw a wrench into this just to give my opinion, just to kind of. I think that, you know, I haven't really fleshed out this idea, but it's coming to me now of what I actually think, and what I think in this moment is that you should not listen to anybody above 2K elo at all, because that's
more common than you think.
Well, I'm sure that people will say that out of bitterness. I do not. I say that because I think that the pros are going to be all right. You know, you give them whatever it is, like they're gonna discover.
Of course, but that doesn't mean the game is gonna be better for it.
Correct. And so who do you balance around, and whose opinion do you listen to? I think that the sweet spot really is anyone within like the 1500 to like 1800 range, maybe 14 to 18. Let's say we'll expand it out, because I think at that point you've worked out a lot of the bad kinks of like I actually know how to play the freaking game kind of thing, right? Like, because you can see people who are at like 900 elo, 800 elo. Sorry guys, I'm sure you have fine opinions. You just don't really know how to play the game, like to any sort of like degree.
Sorry, that's what I was getting at.
You know, right? Exactly. It's like, okay, that's fine, but then you're not so great that like every single thing, like, you know, you're just kind of like, I shouldn't say people above 2K elo are flawless, because I mean I watch people who just rinse and repeat the same sort of dumb builds to like boost their elo, so we shouldn't give too much credit. But like, where like this thing is more of a, I don't know, it just clicks. Like if you're Julian, it just clicks for you in a way, like you're saying CEO, that you're just kind of, you know, just better at the game just because of a natural affinity for it. I think that elo bracket, that kind of mid-range to higher mid-range elo bracket, is really good because you can kind of understand the issues and the nuances that are hitting you, of like the kind of interactions. You lose a lot of the bias because you play a lot of different civs perhaps, or you've just been playing the game and you're like, okay, you know, we're having a discussion about balance. I'm going to put aside like my own feelings, whatever. And then you, however, it's not so, I don't know, like refined being the, I don't know, this quoted term, although I'm reticent to use it. Your gameplay is not so refined that like you are sort of losing the kind of generic experience of what the game ends up feeling like. You know what I mean? Like we were talking about how just sometimes the way things feel, right? Like the kind of indication you get from the game of how like, and that's something that also includes balance, and people forget that it's not just the numbers on the screen. It can also just be the way that like an interaction goes, that it just doesn't feel great. And I think that the mid elo range is probably the best thing to balance around. Bulk of the players, kind of not the bulk, but a good chunk of the player base exists in that range. But then also like it's enough skill to know, and not too much skill where it's like balance becomes a matter like a more trivial matter. Does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say something, but I forgot. You were yapping so much. No, I'm just kidding.
You've routinely forgotten throughout this conversation pretty much anything that you've been trying to say. Like I trust CEO, like CEO being 1700 elo or thereabouts, right? Like I trust his statement on balance more than my own view on balance, right? But I'm
also just very smart.
But like I would also say that your opinion on balance, even though like
it's clouded by his hatred for any civ that does good against Russia.
Fair.
No, but I think that's where I acknowledge I play a civ that, you know, often doesn't do very well, and you know, like I get smacked by China like every game. I think China's a good solid civ. I'm not gonna like go and parade around the view, oh, China's broken because I've like a, you know, 2% win rate against them. That's the difference. I guess it's just a bit of self-awareness, which to Shark's point, I think around that mid-elo is where people do develop, like get enough, I guess, understanding of the game to have self-awareness that when you play certain civs, you're gonna have a great time against some civs. Doesn't make that specific civ broken, and you're gonna have a really tough time against other civs. Doesn't make those civs that are smacking you around broken. I guess that's just the core thing I'm getting at the crux of this discussion, is distilling down what, you know, how you form up a view. And I think, but then when you, I guess, playing different civs, how you realize it is, oh wow, I'm playing this civ, and you know, I'm a solid. Actually, it doesn't even matter what ELO you are. Say anything above 1400, like I'm 1500, call it, and I'm playing. Say you play 100 games against other people that are also exactly 1500, and I'm just like losing to everything. Like that shifts from being anecdotal to empirical, right? You know, you have bad days, you have good days, but you know, there's a reversion to mean. And yeah, similarly, which is why everyone plays Baja or Otto, because everyone likes winning, and you know, they're gonna win around people at their traditional ELOs, and then you know, they'll eventually hit a wall once they hit 1800 or whatever, and people's skills at the game punish just their laming. But yeah, I think that's how you know, and the core of this discussion is being able to remove your bias from it. So yeah.
Okay, but so do you guys? We do have some statistics about win rate.
Yeah, this is a good point.
Do you guys think that we should, like, should that be a part of the discussion?
Yeah,
like as a serious part about how we balance. Like, if one civ has a significantly higher win rate than others, like based on just the statistics, should that be a part of the balance discussion?
Depends on the pick rate.
Yeah, exactly. You need a decent sample size.
So like, for example, like, you know, again, I hate using Ottomans as an example, but you know, the fact that Ottomans maintain when I hated this was somebody was in a debate with me and they're like, they maintain an average win rate, and I look and I'm like, it's a 52% win rate, and I'm like, anything above 50% is above average win rate. That is like that is positive.
And that's what exactly people underappreciate small statistical deviances once you get to those big sample sizes. Like 52% win rate across all ELOs is like insane.
That
and people
then,
just go like, oh, it's only 52%, because when they play against Otto, it doesn't feel like you win rounded down 5 out of 10 games. Obviously it doesn't feel that way, but yeah, that's just I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, if we
I
just
work
look
in
at Free Food
statistics
Party right now,
most people do
like
not understand them.
like Ottoman has a 52% win ratio across all ELO.
right, and what's the pick rate? It's like it's got to be over 30% of like all like of players picking Ottoman, which is even worse.
Exactly.
You know, that's how you know, like, really it's balanced, not even around ELO, you balance around civs too, right? So like for example, you know, it should feel, it's not so much that like every matchup should be like totally even. That's not the way that we should think about balance, and exactly to your point, right? And that's exactly what you guys have been saying. But at the same time, you should always have viability, and it should never feel bad to play. So like it can feel bad to play against Ottomans, especially because they're picked so much, and the fact that they are picked so much and still maintain an above average win rate tells you that something is wrong, because then that means that across like various skill ranges and with the higher sample size, you are still seeing the same outcome of a positive win rate. But then even more so is that, let's say CEO is playing Russia and he's like, I'm playing Russia because I'm masochistic and it feels bad in a lot of my matchups. Like, it's hard to play Russia. That is something that is improper in terms of balance. Even if he wins, it doesn't really matter to me, because Russia then just is not good to play, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, it just is not, doesn't hold the same sort of viability in terms of its own internal balance against these other civs. So win rate, yeah, I think that like toning things down when you see that like certain strategies are winning a lot and it's across elo ranges and things like that, and especially if the pick rate is justifying it, because I remember Howd being like a crazy high like win rate, but the pick rate is like what, 2%? Like, it's like infinitesimally small, that to the point that the data is almost like unusable. It actually is unusable, if we're being honest. So but I hope I'm being internally consistent here, where it's like, you know, I complain about Dutch all the time just because I feel like that is like just a perfect civ in terms of like its own internal balance, and yet just feels so bad to play into this meta, just because everything is about freaking like anime power spikes, as if this is like a Naruto battle. And like Dutch just doesn't have that,
doesn't possess it.
So then you're just left out in the cold, and I'm like, see that
Yeah, but do you change Dutch then, or do you just nerf all the other shit?
Well, it depends on how good of a developer you are.
Yeah, like I think like, as Shark said, and you know, not to stray too much into the micro topics, but you know, there's an identifiable cause, I don't know if that's what you call it, cause or symptom or whatever of this meta, and that's, you know, XP and civs that get just really big power spikes, because you know, in games like this, like diminishing returns is just like everything. Like, that's why, like, you know, you can boom and, you know, have 60 villages, and then, so, you know, you can produce heaps of units as an example, but say your opponent just has this mass, it just becomes an unkillable mass. Like, you can keep producing like units out of a barracks, out of a stable, and like drip feeding them in, but they just get deleted disproportionately fast. It's obviously why micro and stuff is important in big equal fights. But yeah, that's, and to your point earlier as well, it does take away a bit of that skill element, right? Like, you know, you have USA doing its Highlander thing, and you know, they just right click everything, and just the damage output is so high that like even your units that counter them sort of don't anymore, because they're dead before they actually deal that counter damage they're designed to do. And this is the same with like all those AoE units, like the what's the Mexico Merc with like the ranged charge attack that does splash damage. Like, you know, you build a counter unit, but it doesn't matter because they just die. immediately
yeah,
to these silly
the
quattro
arrow
arrows or
flow.
whatever. Yeah, like you make longbows against them, and all your longbows just die at the start. So like,
Yeah.
it does like it breaks it. Anyway, I realize that's not the topic of this podcast to get into specific instances of what's essentially devolving into like a what's lame podcast. But yeah, like so to loop back to Shark's point, like then you try and when there's clearly identifiable causes like that, you can sort of address the cause of that. And like I've been a big proponent of for example, like how do we address TPs? How do we address the XP meta that's making like civs with powerful shipments and good XP curves disproportionately powerful? Like you address that. You don't need to like go and fix up every single civ. You make TP, you change TP design. Again, I'm not saying this is the right or wrong solution. You make TPs more expensive, for example, so you slow them down if they want to build TPs, essentially punishing their gameplay in other ways to enable access to that XP. You have more non-TP maps in the map pool. You have less maps where TPs are super hard to contest / punish. I'd say, yeah, where you can, you almost want to focus on more like the macro universal aspects. I think that's just a good design practice. Not to mention it's much simpler and avoids like unintended consequences of when you fiddle around with like really specific things that all right, you might be addressing this aspect, but then it breaks another aspect.
And just to follow up on that, I feel like while they were still patching this game, they kind of painted themselves into a corner here, because like when they released the Africa civs, they also made it so that the ranked map pool doesn't include any of the non-TP maps anymore, I believe. So there's not a single map
1v1,
exactly, that doesn't have a TP or a native. No, just a regular TP. I think doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Alaska?
And that's no, that's not in the ranked map pool.
I thought it is. Is it not?
No.
Really?
Point being, whether it's 0% or like 5%, like there are like no pretty much close to no maps without TPs.
Right.
I guess is what.
Yeah, and that's just because they designed 2 of the new civs around having either TPs or livestock.
Yeah.
And so they just have to have that now. Otherwise, those civs are useless, basically. And that's just bad civ design. Like, I love the idea of the African civs. It's just it clearly
more map
didn't really fit the at least the ranked part of this game.
Exactly, and I think that leads to a thing that I think Shark's gonna find nice and pertinent to his topic is like moving on from all right, which ELO bracket should lead patch design is are you then more interested in like designing the game and patching it to suit tournaments or ladder? Because those are 2 very, very different things. And you actually see like, the likes of Lionheart and stuff when they're talking, when they're describing civs, they'll often actually split it in 2. They'll go, okay, this civ's like useless on the ladder, but it's a good tournament civ. To be honest, I don't really like that point because I think every civ's a good tournament civ because every civ ultimately has one good matchup, right? Maybe with the exception of Inca. I don't know. I don't play it. But so you then, because like if I can use this civ to respond to another civ or vice versa, it makes for a very different meta discussion. And I think obviously there is some overlap because the good civs on the ladder are good by virtue of the fact they beat a lot of civs. And being able to beat a lot of civs is obviously similarly good in a tournament context because you can use that civ against for a counter pick for a lot of civs. But I just wanted to throw that in there because you pretty much every like Lionheart video I feel like he goes, oh yeah, it's bad, but it's a good tournament civ.
Silly. I feel like there's a lot of like, love Lionheart. I love what he does for the community. I find that the wider AoE through community outside of the three of us is a very unserious place. No, I mean like it's tough because first off, who cares? Like if it is even the case that there's a difference between a tournament context, which I'm sure that there is because it's more of a closed environment where you have it like the maps are prearranged and maybe your matchups are prearranged. You know, you're talking about like maybe higher echelons of player. That is, you know, okay, fine. Like we can say that there's a delineation there and a distinction. But if we're balancing for the game, you know, as a community, the community exists within a ranked ladder. Like I would say, like outside of
like tournaments.
I mean,
important.
I mean, like 90% of any games that are being played at this point in multiplayer is going to be on the ranked ladder in a 1v1.
Yeah, but what's 90% of YouTube content? Tournaments.
Yeah, I guess so. That's just because I mean they're not. Well, I mean, I imagine that creators are not very imaginative either. I feel like this is the only channel that has actually decided to make something somewhat different. We haven't done any like ranked cast games or whatever.
Like,
well, we don't do any cast games on here. Like everybody else does, but we don't do that anymore. Yeah. When's the last time we casted a game?
Oh, great. You found a nice niche, Shark. I like it.
No, but I mean, like my point is not to like, it's not a flex or anything like that. I mean, you make the content that you make. But my point is that you balance around the community, and so therefore you balance around the ladder, like inherently.
But it's also undeniable that like tournaments are a significant part of this community. Like,
in what sense do you mean that?
I know a lot of people in Sunbros don't watch like Twitch, but like that's or you like live streams in general of this game, but like a significant part of the active player base do watch.
Sure, and
that's like an important part of keeping the community together.
I agree.
Every time ESOC has a spring tournament or whatever, or like just any tournament, like there's a significant part of the community.
Yeah, exactly. I tune in every time.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not knocking that. Far be it from me to knock it. I'm not. I think that it's a wonderful thing that ESOC does that. It's a wonderful thing that we have streamers that do that kind of yeoman's work. I think that, you know, if we had serious developers who cared at any point in the development cycle of this game, then they would have, you know, obviously leaned on that aspect, and then they would have pushed for that. They would have helped organize tournaments and things like that. And I know that ESOC says, oh, well, we got some support, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, a random post in a Discord forum about how like there's going to be an ESOC tournament in a month or something like that from the developers is not, in my opinion, is not sufficient support for the game. You know, it's not that it's not that different.
That's not what we're talking about.
Right. I'm getting to the point is that however, still is that even in that, like if you have an ESOC tournament on Twitch and like you get thousands of views and you know, let's say there's a money pool and all this kind of stuff, when you're pulling people into the game through that, and then they buy the game and they get in and they get online and they get on the ranked ladder, like whether they stay in the game and like develop those skills and want to continue to play is very much contingent not on the experience of what they have at the tournament. It's contingent upon the experience that they have on the rank ladder. And so regardless is that you still are going to have to balance the game around not the experience of those who play tournaments, but on the experience of maintaining and expanding your player base for a game experience that is conducive to that end. And
of course, but yeah. I don't think any of us said that we're solely going to balance the game around tournaments.
Yeah, my hot take is that my hot take is that like a tournament is going to be a tournament. Like you let them figure that out. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I'm saying like it's a distinction without a difference in my opinion.
I do think there is a like interesting discussion to have about it. Like if let's say some civs overperform in a tournament, like that could be a good place to start a discussion about balance, because then you can actually single out some of the factors that maybe ranked play lacks that show itself in tournaments, and that could be like, oh well, maybe we think this kind of or this aspect was actually very enjoyable both for the players and the watchers, and we would like to see more of that. Like, for example, non-TP maps. Like I remember playing ranked ladder where there was no TPs, and you know, it was like once in a while. It was fun.
Yeah,
It
it's
was a
night and
different
day.
experience. And but we don't even have that anymore.
Well,
No, exactly. Not even one map.
yeah, there's some
Yeah, not a
variables.
single map.
I think that is true. I think that you can create much more of a well, this kind of goes back to like the idea of balance being like a lab thing, you know, but I agree that if you have a controlled environment like that, you can sort of like suddenly maybe parse out certain dynamics that are present within the game as a way of like, and then, you know, developers sit and they take notes and they say, huh, that's interesting that this is overperforming, or saw like, you know, we exposed some sort of thing. But I would say like even more successful than that was like, what was the tournament? I'm going to go into the Discord, and Spades was talking about launching a tournament, and it was a weird, where is that? That's announcements.
Oh, we were talking about that, Madonna. The like age.
Yeah, I'm in the tournament.
Yes, this time
Our boy is in there.
the quirk is that you aren't allowed to send any shipments until age 3, and you cannot reach age 3 until the 9-minute mark.
We need more of this stuff. Like,
Yes.
I reckon, I 100% agree. Like, because oh my god, like, because to be honest, like the last tournament was just fucking French mirrors all day, and it was so fucking boring. Like,
Yeah.
no shade at the players or the organizers. That the production value was great, etc. But like, it was just so like predictable and boring.
I think that exposes balance more, to be honest with you. Like, actually though, because then, not in the sense of like, oh well, then that's not your experience on the ladder. You're gonna have shipments. You're gonna be able to reach H3, whatever. And I'm like, no, but you can kind of get an idea. Now, some civs are gonna rely more heavily on shipments. Like in this game, like nobody's gonna play Spain. Like, you're not gonna play Spain in this, like, because, you know, obviously. But I think that kind of gives you an idea, though, when you start to eliminate some of those factors. You can kind of get at like, wait a second, these civs are like maybe way too reliant, or maybe this civ doesn't need it at all, and like, whoa, like that's kind of maybe a problem, you know. And the fact that, like, you know, again, exposing that power spike meta, in that, you know, if you can kind of eliminate those factors. So I think tournaments are good in exposing that. I agree with you, but I think they're even better, like they're even more effective, kind of like a gym session, right, where it's like you can do a full body workout, or you can really take the time to like hone in on one thing when you're in the session. And so I would say in this case, right, maybe not this exact tournament, but if we say like, okay, let's see how civs perform, like just a tournament of no TP maps. Let's see what we get, you know, what happens.
Yeah, the tier list like flips pretty much, right? Like, and I think that's why, and especially speaking practically, like, you know, maybe we don't get another patch, so we're gonna have to create our own intrigue. Like, that's how you continue to make the game interesting for the community. So like, I fully back people that do these sorts of tournaments. I know like there was a higher profile one a while ago that was age 2 only, I think, for example, and then it was like, yeah, like there was like
tournament as
there was a
well.
bunch of India, there was a bunch of Russia, like all these cities you just never see in tournaments pretty much. And it was like, oh, this is like so awesome, and it was like the most fun I've had watching the game in like forever, because it was just different and interesting. So I agree, and you know, good on. Sorry, was it Spades who's organising it? Good on you, Spades. Shout out. But I just, before we get like too far from it, Madonna said, I liked Madonna's point around like the Africa civs and you know, backing yourself into a design corner. And I guess my question to that, like in response to that, is with a civ like this where we've got with a game like this where we've got, you know, it's deep, obviously very deep in its life cycle. It's got a bunch of civs, and it's, you know, call it pretty diluted content-wise. I think we can always do more, and we want more. But I'm just talking more from like a design perspective, not a play attitude. Like, how do you and just say this was a supported game, we were going to get patches, new civs. Like, how do you continue to generate like differentiation, you know, balance and intrigue with new civs without making them super map dependent? Because yeah, Madonna, you essentially said like, you said I think it's bad, like bad design that a civ be map dependent. Which, look, I kind of agree with to some degree. You don't want civs to just be like completely dog shit on every map that doesn't have this one feature, and on that map they're like mega broken. To be fair, I don't think we have any civs quite to that degree. But yeah, like how, if they were gonna add 10 civs this year, how do you like? Do you think it's possible to make them all interesting and unique in their own way without ultimately being map dependent?
That's a good question.
Well, certain civs have been added that shouldn't exist. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, Mexico can.
Mexico.
I feel like with a lot of the civs though, like it's a logical continuation of the concepts of the original game. Like we have,
And yes, you also have to avoid power creep, right?
yes,
Just throwing that in
yes,
there. Yeah.
obviously. But it's, for example, the Africa civs, like they excel on TP maps and livestock maps, and those
Yep.
are things that were in the game already. Like they were already there. They were just expanded upon. It's like how they expanded on all the natives when DE released, and I think that it's not problematic in itself. It's just the problem comes in when it doesn't. For example, like natives were never supposed to be in the original game design. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it was never supposed to be like the main gameplay part. It was always supposed to be a supporting part of your like army composition or whatever, or like a small buff to your units or gathering rates or something like that. And that's why they don't cost population space, for example, the military units. But now you can literally do like full native builds with certain civs, and you're completely fine. And I'm not quite sure where I fall on that, but it's very, very difficult to balance. But it doesn't. It's still they're just building on what was there originally. They're not coming up with completely different or like new concepts.
When you asked me earlier, this reminds me of this, like reaching back into the conversation. I believe it was Madonna that asked me, well, then do you buff the Dutch or do you nerf everything around it so that way it works, in a 1v1 ladder context? And then I responded, it depends on how good of a developer you are. Because the thing is that, and what I mean by that, and is exactly what you're saying here, is that I think, and I don't fault them. I really don't, because I think that when you make new European maps, it's super cool. And then somebody had the idea when they were sitting down in the room, and they were like, we are going to make it so that you have royal houses as the natives now. So you get to align yourselves with these royal families, these unique European units, and they have all these crazy buffs and things like that, But how do you get somebody in a game, in a 1v1 ladder match where you are moving by the second and you have so many things to accomplish, so many things to think of, so many things to consider, that you're like, it is worth my time to go and send my explorer over here, spend 200 wood, which is the hardest resource for me to gather, and then put that down and then start to invest the resources that could be spent elsewhere to get this thing. What do? You make it worth that player's while. And how do you do that? You buff it and you buff it and you buff it. And so what you do is that you say, instead of having to actually sit and build it, you just spend 100 wood and 100 food, and then it builds itself. And then we'll make it so that these units are cracked. And then we'll make it so that you get like 2000 XP when and then, right? And then and then boom, now you are in power creep. You are in a situation where these things become vital, and if you are not aware of these things and if you're not using them, you are going to get screwed hard. And so then how do you balance around that? Well, I have to add more power to other things now to balance out the power that I gave this other thing. And so now civs get reworked. Now they get new shipments. Now France has a revolution. Now France has the old guard. Now you have this and you have that, right? And so then all of a sudden, you see what I mean? And then now it just becomes, but how do you add in power in an easy way without having to like really think about the civ's identity in quotes? Well, we have the card system, right? We have these church texts. And so these are easy things that we can kind of like steroids in the arm of the Civ as though like this is like a cool unique thing that you can send, whatever, that fits the aesthetics of the civilization. But really all they are other power spikes to be able to balance out the other power spikes that they put into the game, so that way they incentivize the player to want to do the cool things that the developers have added. They want you to use these tools, these resources. And so now we're in this weird meta where it's like, I don't play H2. I don't even play H3 anymore. I play a little bit of H3 and I'm going right to 4 because I know that I need to get my power spikes. I know that these are these cool tools, that these really pretty uniforms and crazy devices that these units are using, that, that the developer wants me to use. And they want me to use it. And so the way they incentivize that is they make it really strong. And that's really, I think, the crux of it. So it's like, how do I balance Dutch? Well, apparently for the developer, I just make everything else strong. Everything becomes really strong. And so I feel like fundamentally Age of Empires 3, and then again, people disagree with me on this, but I think Age of Empires 3 is fundamentally a Naruto anime battle, where it's like one side gets its power spike, the other side gets a power spike, and then you battle it, and then the other side does their power spike, and it just depends on who gets the spike at the right time and then lands the punch. And that's pretty much it. And this is why people are like, oh, you're just a lame FF enjoyer. And I'm like, we are all FF enjoyers. we're all enjoying the power spikes because you need them, That's how it is. Anyway, that was a lot.
But why can't we why can't you try and limit the power creep? Why can't you take a step back instead of doing a step forward?
Yeah, I agree. But the thing is that the incentive for the well, first off, there's two things, right? And I'm going to add the community because I've been dogging the developers because World's Edge can anyway. I think the community is also at fault, right? Because the community is nothing but people who just desire content for content's sake. Because a lot of people just play single player. They play in skirmishes, they play in-house, whatever. So the ladder, the tournaments, the Twitch, none of that matters to them. They're not even listening to this podcast, right? Like, engaging in the wider world of Age of Empires 3 doesn't really strike them. But even still, a vast majority of the player base, we see this. All three of us have known this, right? Like, we exist in multiple Discords, we exist on the forums, we exist on the Reddit, that we see people are like, well, I want the new civs. Like, I want Poland and I want Denmark. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, sounds cool. You know how nightmarish that's going to be for the balance again? But all they want is the new content. Oh, now I want Persia, and now I want these maps, and on and on and on and on it goes. They just want content. They just want to try the cool new flashy thing. And so and so the developer has to say, okay, well, that's where the money is. That's where the desire of the community is. That's where we're going to go. But then every time you add something, one, the balance gets further and further away from you, how difficult that is. And then two, all that happens is that, so then how do you solve that? You power creep it. And so I agree with you, Madonna. I think taking away things and making it parsed down is what is the core of the RTS experience in a balanced sense. But in terms of the community, when they demand content endlessly and want the new flashy thing, like if I make it, yeah. And then if I make it so that, like, for you to get this thing costs 3,000 wood because it's so strong, nobody's going to go for it. It's like only in very small contexts are you going to be able to do that, and definitely not on the ladder, because I'm not going to let you. So what do? I have to make it accessible, and then therefore the meta has now shifted in such a way as to just be power creep. It's just spiking. And yeah,
I don't know, I feel like a lot of things like this, I agree with you like overall, but like a lot of these things are still fixable, I think. Like for example, there's so many like church cards that now ship like 30 units. Like, why can't you just make that like 10 units?
I agree. That wasn't the spirit of church cards when the game originally came out. They were like,
yeah, but
even
like
niche things. I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying like it shouldn't be a church card's role to give you some insane unit thing. It should give you like this niche upgrade or some weird thing. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. But even if you want to go with what they have right now, like unit things, why don't you make it cheaper and make it less impactful? Like, make it 10 units instead of 30 units. Like, that would solve so many issues.
Yep.
No, big battle.
100% agree. And
big battle.
Yeah.
That's it.
And Well, and then like on this, and I guess, you know, because church cards made me think about it. Like I remember, and this is exactly to your point, Shark. So like, you know, when I was a kid, I got this game like gifted to me, and so I played it like a bit, you know, 2005 or whenever it was. And I remember back then, and I think actually for a long time, like church cards often had trade-offs, and things in general had more trade-offs. I remember like the Dutch to get more banks, the units got slower, which to be fair, I think was super prohibitive. So I'm glad they changed that. But like, you know, the thin red line, the British one, made your units slower. They got tankier and they got slower. So I was like, I'm getting this, but I'm giving up this. So, but I like that because it makes it situational. It's like there are situations or matchups or what have you where actually giving up my speed to make them a bit tankier and take a few more hits is a good thing. But then I can't just do it, like I can't just bot it, because there's going to be situations where, oh shit, I've done this, but damn, I could have really done with the speed, and sure, my units are tankier, but it's not working to my advantage right now. You know, I think Spain, I don't know, I forget how theirs works, but yeah, again, has one more HP for your heavy infantry, makes them slower or something. I think, and I think pretty much all of those have like been reverted to like make the trade-off like way less punitive. And if I was, you know, in the pilot seat, like I would just introduce more of those things, like more actual like choices, genuine choices in the game. That's what this game like is lacking, and I think what is making it like the issues with the meta, like what causes that. Like there's too many things that are just win-wins no matter what, and as we always term it, you just spot it. You need things where it's like you could do this, but it could be a mistake. And I get it. Obviously, there's things that are mistakes, like, of course, like, and like we said, the meta's broadly pretty good. But I'd love just a few more things where it's like, or like this could be a gamble, or you know, based off my scouting, I think it's a good move, but who knows? Well, not who knows, but might not be. I love trade-offs in RTSs. I think it gives it much more like path-dependent, interesting outcomes, and well, you know, is inherently more balanced rather than just, oh, I click this buttons and all my units become really good, and the trade-off is something I don't care about.
It's actually such a good point.
Yeah.
Just think about auto. Like when they do the church thing, like there's literally no downside.
Yeah, I mean, the downside's the resources, right? But they take that away with that stupid church card as well, right? Whatever, the one that makes everything cheap, so it's like 20 Nizans for like 1k wood or something.
But as you say, like there's no, they can just, after they've done their timing, and if you somehow survive, they're just back on track. Like there's no
revolts.
There's no debuff, or there's no path dependency at all. Like you just do your thing again.
Yeah, and I think I missed out on the most obvious one, was how they've sort of treated revolts. I know some revolts are still all in, but I remember like back in the day, like revolts were like mega, like it was like full, like your finishing move or you're just dead. And look, I'm a bit conflicted, because at the same time I think it's cool to have like more options as well. Like I think it's cool have some revolts that are eco-focused and give you less of a power spike. See, I don't see anything wrong with that, but there's a balance, right? Like you have some revolts, you get 1 trillion units and you need to win the game in 2 minutes. But you get some revolts where, you don't get 1 trillion units, but you get this other feature and you need to work it to your advantage in another way. Again, I don't want to get stuck on the micro stuff or the examples, but I think, you know, the other classic one along with Otto is Baja, and that's just stupid because you get all this eco and all this power spike, and it's just mega dumb because you literally get like Brit level eco with insane units and full, 200 pop, and there's no downsides. To our point, just to link it back to what we were saying, like there's no trade-off, there's no downsides. So that's, I just wanted to throw that in there. I think like if it was me, I would have more, I guess call it path dependent gameplay.
And and I should temper what I'm saying, because I was kind of yelling earlier about all this power creep stuff, and the thing is that if it was up to our 2K ELO betters, then it's kind of like, you end up in a situation where, like, then it's just what, semi-FF until you die, right? I think that's kind of how they would.
Yeah, which is how it used to be.
Right, exactly. That's how they would want the game to go. And so there is a bit of a, like, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's got to be like the mid elo range, because, you know, there's the desire for options. There's the understanding that I think of, like, and maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody, you know, in a higher elo range, but I just get the feeling that it's like more content is good for the most part, of like different experiences, and they're really pretty. And I think it's really cool that we have different civs for the most part, and like all these new units and stuff like that. It's just like you guys are saying, implementation is very much part of the balance discussion, you know. And, you know, there's something about, like, you can have great balance, but then you have to keep the game stagnant and you can't change it, right? You have to tweak, and then you get to a point where you just can't do anything anymore to it. And then, you know, and that's how maybe some people would want it. And then, you know, then there's the other aspect of it where it's like you're adding content, but then you have to make sure that it kind of fits. And unfortunately, I don't know, maybe the design of these things wasn't like, I don't know. I definitely think it was considered, you know, as in terms of like the cool factor of it, and like what kind of different things can we do. But in terms of a wider interaction, I'm not entirely convinced, you know, that was really like really gamed out in it, like, especially when it comes to like Mexico or like the African civs. I'm like, okay. But anyway. So I'm just agreeing with all that, and just to say, like, when having the balanced discussion, it's kind of tough, because now it's like, you know, people are having a certain experience where, like, you know, for me, you know, you guys keep saying like, oh, Blackwatch sucks, it's not good, like, it's not how you should play Britain. And I'm like, I don't know, works for me. I don't know, like, I don't know, I see Madonna get freaking trashed by it, so I don't know what to tell you, but like,
whoa,
I've seen it with my own two eyes. I've seen it. So, well, anyway, that's about an hour and a half, folks. I don't know. We haven't come to any sort of like conclusions. Yeah, we didn't solve it. It's just more of like things to think about. I guess.
I promised we would solve the balance.
Yeah, no, I have to get back on, and we'll suffer through the same game.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess somebody could just turn around and say, it doesn't really matter because you guys are getting a patch anyway, and I hate you. And I would be like, that's fair. Like, you know, I guess.
So, all right, like, why don't we end with this? So, like, you know, all right, I think we all agree that, you know, I call it corporate, you know, developers of the game have done the game pretty dirty, blah, blah. All right, say you have the opportunity tomorrow to, you know, they go, all right, you know, we're happy to give the reins over to someone. Like, would you want that?
I would.
Like, how? Yeah, I don't know. Like, because then, I guess
I think it's possible.
Who's then responsible? Like, who?
Yeah, but I think we've talked about this before. But okay. I think it's definitely possible to find a consensus, like how to move forward. Just because it's gonna be hard to find that, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like, there's plenty of people in this community, high and low elo, who, you know, can come to some kind of agreement about how to move forward.
But you can't practically do that through just, like, you know, you can't have someone sitting there reading every Discord message. Like, do you have like a committee? Do you have like, oh, here's 5 people from below 1500, 5 people from 15 to 2K, and 5 from 2K and above? How do you weight it? Do you have 10 from 2K and above, 7 from, you know, like?
Didn't they do that though? They had a secret. There was a secret group with.
Well, I have no idea.
Talanis.
I've heard of that too.
Okay.
But
I mean, it makes sense.
That wasn't really. I think it was just like the developers added some players,
I think that's a great idea.
Players, and then like half of the time they didn't even listen, like, at all.
Yeah, exactly. It's
So
it's just purely like optics.
Well, they would also say too is like, well, we have our what was it like I guess it was I forget who said it. I think it was Talanis that was like, I love Talanis, love you, dude. I know that. I don't know if you still listen to us, but love you. But I think he said something like, well, we have our own internal data, and so like I hate to see you guys being so critical of the Ottomans when we work so hard on them, and like it doesn't, like your criticisms don't match up our internal data. And boy, did that kick it! Yeah, that kicked a hornet's nest in the server, dude. Oh my god, everybody was like, yeah, it was bad.
When was this?
Oh man, it must have been What do you think,
Madonna?
Madonna? Oh yeah, well before you, 3-4 years ago at this point, I would say. Like like in the earlier on in the development cycle before the Ottoman rework, to be honest with you, I think. And he just came in and said that. He was like, yeah, like he kind of like finger wagged at us like, no, that's not. And then we were like, oh no,
tower.
yeah, and then everybody was responding like, you do not know what you're talking about. This is the experience of the player. Don't you dare talk down to us. We have the data from the Civ grid. Like it tells us this.
How dare you?
Yeah, and I mean, like, okay, whatever, but like the wider point being that like, all right, like what's the like. I mean, it's not like they interacted with the community that much anyway, like from the beginning,
Yeah, I don't think you need to do a fucking survey every time you want to change something.
Sure.
Like, it's not that complicated.
But
like,
but don't bother to
Old school
ask.
RuneScape.
But also don't bother to ask or interact if you're not gonna. You know what I mean? It's like it would be kind of.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It would be.
Why not?
No, because it's extremely rude, Madonna. If I go and I ask you a question, like if I say, "Hey,"
Right.
like yeah, I'm like, "Hey, dude, do you want a latte? Do you want a latte, or do you want a black cup of coffee?" Oh, Aaron, thank you so much. I would like a latte, and I come back and I bring you like a matcha, and you're like, "This is," and I'm like, "Yeah, I just the minute you open your mouth, I just stop listening."
But we're not talking about what we're talking about, like getting it what the feelings of the community are. So if 10 people say that Ottoman is broken, and then one guy comes in and says, no, they're actually underpowered, like I want them buffed, then the person in charge needs to take a holistic view of that situation and then decide what to do.
Sure.
That's not the same thing as what you just said.
What I'm saying is that don't like. I'm saying you have to be when you're interacting with the community, right? If you're coming in and you're like, okay, like I'm not
defending what Talanis did there. I'm just trying to say, like, moving forward. For example, I've seen lots of I want to give a shout out to Batu because he's done a lot of thinking about how to balance the game. Like he has a whole document about what he would like to do, and like there's tons of people like that. Who like can gather lots of great ideas, and then you can just like discuss it and hear what people have to say. And,
sure, I'm not saying that every jabroni needs to be like, I don't know if you have a word for jabroni in Sweden, just like an idiot. Like it's not like you need to, like if you're a developer, you don't have to sit and listen to every single opinion and be like, that has to actually become actionable data for us to act upon. Like, definitely not. However, I don't know. Like, if you form a group, like, keep the group and try your best to, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you do it, to be honest with you. Maybe I'm speaking from, like, a place of privilege because I've never had to, like, do that. But I don't know.
But can I just say, like, from what I heard about the old ESOC patch is, I don't remember his name, but there was one guy who was, like, the main developer of that, and he got a lot of credit because he had to sit and listen to what everybody said, and he had to take all the shit when he changed something that people didn't like. But overall, people felt like he was a very like responsible developer. He truly did care like what the broader community thought about the changes, and he took in their opinions. And so like, and that was just one guy, and he like he's the whole base for the DE release. And so I don't think it's that complicated. Like I feel like we're overthinking it. Like if the game truly becomes a shit show because like some committee decides to just go their way, or like they do their thing and then everybody hates it, like that's just gonna kill the game. But like then they just shot themselves in the foot, I feel like.
So then why can't World's Edge? Why? So like, if we're, how come the community can create an ESOC patch that? Well, I guess because the ESOC patch doesn't create new content in the same way that World's Edge has created new content. So I guess that's something to consider. But I guess that just leaves a very open-ended question of exactly what the decision-making was and why was it so difficult, and why they were so obsessed with making the Ottomans as strong as possible at every single turn. So I don't know, but if it's really not that hard, then if it's not that hard, then it shouldn't be that hard for a studio that is backed by Microsoft with millions of dollars.
Oh, I think it is, because they have completely different incentives. Like that,
I guess
they don't have to interact with the community because they're not a part of the community. Like I don't even think the developers, when they did patch this game, like did they even play this game? Like they just outsourced like everything to all the feedback and stuff to like a small group of people, and then like sometimes they listened to those and sometimes they did not. Like it feels very arbitrary.
I don't know. Kaiser Clan was making claims, I remember, about how like some of the changes, that he was suggesting were actually put into the game.
I've heard the opposite, that he was almost always ignored. But I think he left the group because he
just wasn't. Yeah. Okay.
He felt like nobody was listening to him.
I mean, it's not a shocker that the people here are like, yeah, World's Edge sucks. Like, I mean, they haven't shown care for the game from the beginning, right? I feel like, I mean, I understand people are like, well,
I disagree with that.
Well, you can't say that because I know. You can't say that because they made patches. They created, they did the definitive edition. They released things, whatever. But I don't know. I feel like the longevity of the game and like, the care for it, obviously the sudden drop off just shows you that we were just part of a quick,
it's just a corporate structure.
Roadmap of release of like get things out there, make a dollar, and then.
But I mean that's just how it is though. Like I don't know what you wanted us to do about it.
I'm not asking you to do anything about it, Madonna. What do you?
No, but I mean, like, what is it? What did you expect?
I don't know.
You always talk about this like you're like personally insulted by like the developers.
No, I'm not. I can't say that I'm personally insulted. No. But when I'm discussing the game, it is kind of a disappointment to find that, like, on the back end of it, you're like, oh, okay, that's what it was. I'm like, all right. And you got people like CEO that are still like, no, patch tomorrow. And I'm like, but hasn't the history kind of proven what this was, And it's not like, I don't take it personally. It's more of like, it's like, wow, that's really suck, I put a lot. I paid for every DLC in full, bought the game in full and everything like that. I'm kind of like, well, all right, cool. And I guess like you can't complain because it's like, well, they presented the product and you bought it, so like, there it is. Like, fair enough, you got me. Like, they're not under any obligation to continue to support it. It just feels bad.
Yeah, so. I just wish they handed it off to the community. And then just let it live.
Like if they had a culture of care, right? That's really what I'm getting at. Is that if they had a culture of care for the community in the game from the beginning, and again, I know people are like really intelligent when they tell me like, well, it's a product and it's a business and they sold you the thing and you bought it and that's the equivalent exchange and I'm like, yeah, I know how the free market works. Thanks, I participate in it every single day. That's not the debate.
Wow, look at Mr. Capitalist over here.
It's just saying that it's like,
you participate in the free market.
I would like it if at one point in time, at any point in time, somebody could, like care for the product that they're putting out in a more, I don't know.
But that's not going to happen.
Sure. Fair enough. You got me. You got me. You're right.
I'm more optimistic.
It's a video game.
Are you advocating for a total and complete shutdown until we can figure out what the hell is going on?
I'm just.
I don't know.
It's just like there's just so many and this is not like a World's Edge kind of like podcast, but it's just so confusing to me that like no, there was no Red Bull. Not even you couldn't even put an Age of Empires 3 graphic. You know what I mean? In the Age of Empires graphic, like that's what I'm saying though. You see what I mean?
The
It's
Wikipedia flag of Poland or whatever.
right.
They
It's
put
just it's not so much that it's like they sold you the product, you bought it, like whatever. You know, it's not even that. It's just like it seems like going out of your way to like ensure that there is no care given to this specific title. And I know, CEO, you're like patch tomorrow, but
anything.
Patch tomorrow, baby.
it's not happening.
But well, no, I think you're talking about as someone that cares about the game, like I do as well, obviously. But like, and I'm not trying to just parrot it's a product thing, but it's like the other day, how many players play this game? 5,000?
6,000,
10,000
daily.
If you're including, maybe people that only play skirmish, and I would say 10,000 absolutely tops, right? So they're like, do I bother putting effort into this? And
look this up.
I piss off 10,000 people. It's fucking nothing, right? And at the same time, I must admit, I've thought about, because you have people, I think including you, Shark, that go, oh, they didn't monetize it properly, which is probably fair, but it's like at this point, it's like, all right, so you release a DLC. How much do you charge for DLC? $30? I don't know. $30?
How much do they charge?
No, it's
No,
like
5.
15 at most.
Yeah, 10.
50? 10, 15. Okay, shit. Well, let's be really generous and say 20. Like, of that 10,000, you probably have, again, being generous, probably half of which would buy it. Like, you're going to sell 5,000 copies at $20. You make 100 grand. Like, that's half a developer's salary. Like,
The original price of the African Royals, for example, is €10. Like that's nothing.
€10. It's
That's
nothing.
nothing.
So like you sell 5,000 copies. You literally, again, I don't know how many FTEs equivalent it takes to build a patch or whatever. But, like,
Yeah, but that's not my freaking
fault.
You know what I mean?
No,
like,
no, it's not. I know it's not your fault, but that's irrelevant.
It's not our fault. Is when it's like, oh, but they didn't make any money
whose
off the
fault
DLC.
it is irrelevant. It's the reality. It's like, you make a patch and you sell it for peanuts. So why would I do it?
That's on them. That's on them. Like I'm like, they set the
that's
price.
on them, so they're not going to do it. So
I mean, okay.
I think patches make a bit more, because a patch, you get some freaking dude to spend, 20 hours on it a quarter. It's like free, right? Like, and it just makes a big difference. I agree with your point around just the culture of just showing care for your product. All right, maybe the money's not stacking up, so don't go and build a whole patch and spend a bunch of expensive FTEs on it. But just like have one junior software dev spend 20 hours on it every few months, just to keep an eye on the state of the game, do some tweaks. Like, that is not too much to ask, and that's what bothers me. Anyway, I feel like we're getting onto another topic here.
We've been floating around a lot of topics, and Madonna's still going to bat for World's Edge. So yeah, whatever. Always the controversial one. Yeah, no. Peak player counts hover between 6,000 and 7,000 per month.
6-7.
6-7. Which is, I think, consistent and healthy numbers especially for an RTS game. But and I'm not even saying proper monetization, because it's not even like people say, well, we just needed to throw more money at them, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. I think this is systemic of a wider issue with Microsoft, which has been losing the video game console wars kind of thing, and so I think this is more endemic of a corporate culture, more endemic of a wider systemic issue with Microsoft and just the gaming industry in general.
The fact that they can't even patch it is pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and honestly, I think that it's also just like studio mismanagement. Like, you know,
Yep.
we all work job. Well, I don't know. Madonna, do you have a job? I don't even know if Madonna has a job, honestly. I think he's just
European. They like
he's an
these
intern.
students
He's
for
like he
20
like
years.
interns at like
money,
different.
get money for studying.
Yeah, he's been at
exactly.
university for 10 years and just intern at
Yeah.
different places. But anyway, the point being, like everybody has worked a job here, and we all know that like it's just the most incompetent like people that just end up in so many different, you know, powerful offices that just kind of can screw over your life just because they, you know, they waited long enough or they sit in certain corners and that's where they are, and nobody can dislodge them. And it's silly to think that that would not also be the case for video game studios. So, I mean, but it's not an excuse for it. I just kind of shrug my shoulders at it and I'm like, okay, cool. So it's just another one of those things where like you just have just a bad situation, I guess. I don't know. But whatever. At least World's Edge is not making my car. That, I guess I can be grateful for that. World's Edge is not making my car. They aren't handling my like air conditioner, you know, like the things that really matter to me. Like, all right, good. Don't put them in charge of anything else. Like,
exactly.
Such a hater.
Oh.
Get out of here.
So the answer to this question is that the people who should be deciding balance is Batu and the three of us.
Yes.
And then there we go.
Yes. Let's go.
I agree with that.
So, well, anyway, we're having more podcast episodes lined up for you guys that we're going to be discussing. Me and CEO have also a new series. I don't know if Madonna's going to hop in on that one.
No,
I don't think
fuck
I'm
him off.
invited.
Oh, okay. He's cut off. All right. But we have a new series coming out.
No, just kidding. He can do Sweden.
That we're going to be talking about that I think would be very beneficial to whatever community is left around here. We thank you guys so much for listening. We hope that you just enjoy all the idle chit chat and nonsense. Please give us your thoughts about balance in the comments and just any of the other topics that were broached upon in this discussion. It was very freewheeling and sprawling. And again, I just want to turn your attention to the links in the description for, our friends Arcadius and his AoE 3 editor channel. Please check him out. Give us a subscribe if you can. And join in the Discord. We'll leave our Discord link in the description. We'd really appreciate it. And maybe you'd be interested in the tournament that we were just discussing, or any other tournaments that we have coming up, that there's always something going on in that server. Very much so. So anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Go ahead and leave a like, comment, and subscribe as usual. And that's about it. We will see you in the next one.